For this episode, I'm not going very far. I'm going to the Netherlands. 16 million people packed into a country smaller than basically every other European country, except Belgium, of course. They built half of the country themselves, literally from the sea. And somewhere in that process, they developed a way of dealing with people that is refreshingly, sometimes brutally honest. What does customer experience actually look like over here? So, as I said, I'm not going to go very far because now I'm in the Netherlands. Welcome to Table 7. I came to the Netherlands to watch people suffer on purpose. Every year, when a storm rolls in off the North Sea and the wind hits force 8, hundreds of Dutch people drag a heavy single-speed bike out of their garage and race straight into that wind. The Headwind Cycling Championship. No prize money, no glory, just you, an upright bike, and a wall of wind trying to throw you backwards. It's the most Dutch thing I can imagine. A country that spent 8,000 years fighting the sea decided that fighting the wind for fun was a reasonable way to spend a Sunday. There was only one problem. I came here in summer, so no storm, no wind, no race. So I did what you do when a plan falls through. I drove to the border and I ended up standing on the strangest border ever seen. This is Baarle, one town, two countries, and more than 30 international borders running through it. 22 little pieces of Belgium sitting inside the Netherlands. And inside some of those Belgian pieces, smaller pieces of the Netherlands again. A country inside a country inside a country. Now this is a border that doesn't politely follow a river or a road. It cuts through cafes, it splits shops down to the middle, it runs straight to people's living rooms. It looks like chaos, and it is, but it works. Who you are isn't decided by the line on the map, it's decided by where you choose to point your front door, which, when you think about, is a positioning decision. So I pointed my own front door north, and I drove to Delft. Say Delft to most people and they pictured this, Delft's blue. The blue and white pottery, the hand-painted tiles. A whole town positioned as a piece of china. I think of something else. Delft is home to one of the best technical universities in the world. And founded in 1842, the oldest and largest in the country. Near the top of the global rankings for engineering, for architecture, for civil engineering. But that's not the only reason I'm here, because Delft is also home to my first guest. She's all about positioning. Let's go meet Justina. I know the way. That way. It is I. Whoa!
Welcome to my crib.
Justina Ciska is a positioning strategist and the founder of the Marketing Waiting Room. She's Polish, she's built her business from the Netherlands, and she has strong opinions about why most marketing talks to people who aren't ready to listen yet. So, hey, Justina, you're Polish. You're living here in the Netherlands for quite some time.
That's correct.
Wow. You've experienced the Dutch in their fullness.
Yes, that's correct.
So, as a non-native to this country, you've been living here for how many years now?
8.
8 years? Okay. So, as a non-native to this country, they can sometimes be direct, very direct. How did that come across?
Yeah, I think the best example is me meeting my husband for the first time. My husband is Dutch, I'm Polish. We met in Poland. And the only thing that I remember from that, or something that's very vivid in my mind, is that he was just so direct that it just, like, he could throw me off my balance like instantly with his like really direct remarks. And when somebody talks like that to me in Poland, they usually are like mean and they don't mean well, right?
Right.
But he does mean well. And so when I came to live here in the Netherlands, I met more people that are like that. And that was intimidating at first. But I really grew to like it because it makes things so much easier as opposed to, you know, where I come from in Poland. It's a high context culture, right? So you kind of read between the lines and that's kind of tiring. And
Okay.
and here is like, they just lay it out as it is. And that's really like refreshing and makes things so much easier.
Have you ever seen situations where their directness actually plays against them or doesn't pan out the way it should, or?
Well, honestly, I don't think so. I've been thinking about this. And actually the only sort of situation where it can play against them, or I've seen that it plays against them, is when they meet with somebody from another country or from another culture and they just don't understand that, right? So then there could be some misunderstandings, or maybe somebody's feelings get hurt, you know, something like that doesn't really happen that often here because, yeah, they're direct. They just say things to each other and they leave sort of like ego or emotions on the side, especially in the business context where, you know, we have something to work towards.
Yeah.
And even if we dislike each other, we're just going to, you know, do the best thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen only the good side of that, I would say.
So you founded the marketing waiting room, which I found a very intriguing concept. When I first heard of it, I said like, okay, this is interesting. I was immediately linking it to the 95-5 rule. Was I right?
Okay, so 95-5 rule comes from the study that Ehrenberg Bass Institute has conducted, and they found that in a category, at any given time, 95% of the people in this category, they're not buying anything, and only 5% of the people are in market for something. Obviously, that's not like exact numbers, it's just heuristic. But the point here is that most of the people are not buying the moment you're approaching them, right? For example, toilet paper is a category, right? 95% of people in that category are not buying today, right now. Only 5% of people in that category that could buy toilet paper will buy today. So obviously these are not like specific or exact numbers. It's just to show that most of people that you're trying to reach with your promotion, with your communication as a business, they're not in the buying window, basically, right? So that has huge implications.
Yeah.
Marketing.
Okay. So that means that we as marketers and customer experience professionals, we think that everybody's ready to buy from us, right? At all times.
Or we can convince them.
Yeah, exactly. So we can push them through the funnel and they will buy from us anyhow. But what you're saying is that, hey, only a very small portion of that total market that you can have as a potential target, only a small portion of them, 5% you said, is actually going to buy from you right now in this instance.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So that is why, you know, that's where I started to think that all the things that we do in marketing, especially the obsession with performance marketing and the clicks and everything has to be measured and like nicely pushing people through the funnel stages, that actually never made sense to me. I started like thinking about it because at first it sounds logical, right? You put ads out there and you expect that people click on them and you expect that people buy. Except that if you think about this 95-5 rule, only if you reach those 5% of people, they will click. But who watches ads? Who looks at ads? Who clicks on ads, especially on Instagram or whatever, LinkedIn? Nobody. So the click-through rates are like super, super low, but we still push these ads, like hoping that, you know, there will be somebody that will click and buy immediately, but that doesn't happen. And I just couldn't really accept this as, you know, the truth.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to find out what the heck is going on here. I was trying to explain that to, you know, the founders that I worked with, until one day I sat with a client and I told them, like, you know what, it's kind of like building marketing waiting room in the minds of your buyers. You know, you have to, they are not buying today. they might buy tomorrow or in 2 months or in 2 years even. So the best thing you can do is build this marketing waiting room in their mind. So they remember you when they're ready to buy, when they enter this 5% group. So the only thing you can do, you shouldn't try to convince them. You should make sure that they remember your name, that they remember what you do, so that when they have the need, they will think of you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a completely different approach.
How easy is it for you to run your business here in the Netherlands? Because you're working all over Europe and I assume even beyond.
Yeah. So I honestly, before starting my business, I worked at an agency, and that feeling of like we're the people of the world, and that was really, really present, and that opened up a lot of things for me. I got to work with clients from abroad, and that kind of made me realize like I can do anything, right, in this world. Like anything is possible here. And I think that kind of cultivated this entrepreneurial spirit in me somewhere there, right? But yeah, it is interesting that for me personally, I am not really attracting Dutch customers for some reason.
Yeah. All right. So if there are any Dutch people listening, this is your stuff. You know, here in the Netherlands, vague platitudes get butchered really quickly because they will call you out on it, right? And my question is, how did that change how you worked here? How has that changed how you work here? I mean, how does that radical honesty challenge the way you position your clients, the brands they position? Does that reflect that actually?
I can't say that the Dutch directness had any influence on that. It was more the reality of, the world we live in. We have so many products, so much choice, and it's just growing and growing and growing. And people need to have a way to make a decision which product is for me. And if you do not position your product correctly, then people don't know what to choose and how to choose, and then you don't end up on their short list. And that directness, the Dutch directness, I don't think it ever had any impact on my work. And it was more me being really, really nerdy about how people think, how they make decisions, and how memory works, what are people's preferences, and so on. So that was my.
So you're sticking to the science and let that do the work.
I'm a nerd like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That is absolutely true. But I mean, the thing I'm struggling with these days is that there is a lot of focus on technology, and rightfully so. I think technology is truly changing the world right now. I'm not trying to mention the two words that everybody's talking about right now, but it is changing how we live, how we work, how we think, how we write as well, and it's also making how we find the right solution to our problem as well. So for brands, it is vital to stand out, basically, right?
Yes.
How is that shaping your work today?
Well, I think stand out is one thing, but be clear is another. Because, like the two words that you didn't want to mention, I'll mention them. Artificial intelligence, that changes everything. How people think or how people make decisions, how people find products. But also, especially now it's a very interesting point in history that we're in, because AI is giving birth to all kinds of new species of products. Like nowadays you can build some, like the agentic era brought together or brought us opportunities to build products that were not possible before. So you can connect all kinds of tooling and you can put them together and make agents do something for you, do a job for you based on the context from all these different tools. And so how do you call a tool that does all of that? We don't know. So that's where we're trying to kind of like positioning experts, myself included, we're looking for ways, like how do we position it? Do we create a new category of products, or do we, how does that work? How do we explain that? And that makes it challenging because, like I said, you need to be very clear. especially in AI, where people are searching for stuff on AI. They're describing what they need. So if you describe your product that matches that need, then you're findable, right?
Yeah.
But how do you do this? Like when there is no category, like if you say, I want to buy a toilet paper, you know what a toilet paper is.
Yeah.
But if you want a tool that is doing something and the something is big and there's no name for it yet, that becomes very interesting, right?
Yeah.
So for me, AI is making, is creating a lot of mess. Like it's breaking categories, it's building new categories, and these categories also kind of live for a very short period of time. Like for example, AI note takers,
Right.
you know, they are like, they all of a sudden they became a thing. Then 5 weeks later, they became a commodity because anybody can build this. So then the next question is like, what now? What do we know? How do we differentiate? What do we build from there? So then AI note takers are being kind of converged into bigger tools, and it's just changing so much so fast. So AI is making a lot of.
Yeah, and I love the point that you're making about being very clear as well, because I think I read a post earlier this week where somebody was taking apart an ad he saw on the best platform in the world. That was the ad line. He did have a point. What was that platform? I mean, what was it doing? Was it CRM? Was it, I don't know. And nobody knows. And I think that vagueness, the more vagueness you have, the less findable you'll become to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that is the problem of today. Exactly. Because like I said, you can do everything with AI. So you can just lump together a lot of different use cases, and then you end up with a platform that is the best.
But then what's the secret sauce? How do you make that happen? If I'm a CX leader and I have a great idea, I have a great product, a fantastic team around me, how do we stand out? What is a thought process that I need to go through? I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Michelle, as a CX expert, you know the answer. It starts with the buyer's mind, with buyers. How do they make decisions? What do they look for? You know, I always say that, especially now with this new technology, founders kind of build products and then they look for users to use that product. And that is more sort of apparent right now because everybody can build everything. So everybody is building everything, and then they find users to use that. But there is a mismatch because they didn't start with the user and the problem that they have. They just started with like, hey, it is possible, so we build it. So now let's find somebody to use it. And when you start from this point, it always goes wrong. Or you might find that group of people that will use it, but that's not very efficient. So you have to start from the user. What is it that you can do for them?
In the past, you've used the enemy test in sharpening your message. Is that a tool that you can also use when you finally defined, hey, this is the thing that we're building, and then trying to clarify your message? How does that enemy test work?
Well, enemy is basically like anything that you position against, right? So there's always like when you think about positioning, you think about I position against something, because that's like if you need to have a frame of reference. Something can be only good when there's something bad, right? So in terms of like the enemy, that is basically whatever you think is going wrong right now in the industry. Or
so it doesn't need to be your competitor. It can be something that's happening in the world that's bigger than that.
Yes, for example. It really depends on your strategy. But you can look at the market and see, okay, you know what? For example, I was working with somebody in the CX industry, and you know this person, of course. And we were looking at, okay, so you're in the CX consultant category, right? And obviously you're different than all the other CX consultants.
I agree.
Because you are, because you have a specific point of view on how things should be. And then so we developed this sort of narrative that, you know, explains what is wrong with the current approach, or what is wrong with how people are seeing CX right now. And then we explain, okay, and this is why our approach is better, and this is why you should be positioned like that. So you basically pick an enemy that is, it can be a mindset, it can be a competitor, it can be something that's going on in the world, something political even, or changes in the world. So it's really about giving a frame of reference for your buyer to choose you, to give a reason to choose you over something else. It all starts with, like what I like to do with my clients, where I start my projects with, is we map out all the possible categories that you can fit in. So you can be a toilet paper, you can be, I don't know, like a kitchen towel or whatever. You can be all kinds of different things. And then we map out, okay, so if you're toilet paper, what do people expect from that category? And they expect that it's white, that is this, blah, 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 right? And then we're like, okay, so does this describe you? Well, not fully, right? Okay, so let's find another category. None of these categories explain you correctly. Okay, so maybe we have to create a new frame of reference, which is, I don't know, a use case, an alternative, something else. And through this process, you realize that, okay, I've been selling toilet paper to people who are actually looking for, I don't know, a cotton cloth, and there's this mismatch. And during positioning exercises, that kind of comes to.
We've been talking about buying cycles that are, well, collapsing is not the word, they're just changing. Are you actually optimistic about the future?
I am.
Okay.
I am. I at first I was, well, I've been through many different phases of, accepting and not accepting AI, but yeah, we have to accept it's here. It's the future. The question is how we use it. And right now we're in this weird sort of a period where we don't know what to do with it. We're just testing, playing with it, And but I believe that at some point in the near future, it will all stabilize, and we'll learn how to use AI. We'll learn the limitations and the possibilities, and we will be honest about what it can. You can already see that a lot of people are starting to realize, okay, it is way less impressive than we thought, or it can do way less than we thought. Let's rethink things. So I'm pretty positive about these changes, and also because it kind of forces people to think about positioning, which is a great thing for me. There's going to be a lot of work for people like me. And I even have data to prove that, because if you look at, positioning, differentiation, brand strategy on Google Trends, it spikes like crazy, like somewhere from August 2025. So like there's this huge spike. So that means that we're starting to realize that, hey, we're building so much, but why are we building this? How do we, what we need to think things through a little bit more, and that gives me a lot of hope. Also as a marketer, that gives me a lot of hope for the profession as well. Things are changing. Brand and the fluffy part of marketing starts to become more, valuable. The creatives, the strategists, the thinkers, the people with taste and judgment, that comes back now. I don't know how this technology, how much further it can go, how much better it can get, but there's always going to be some humanness. Like when you swing the pendulum in the one direction, then it always swings back in the other direction. And so I know that if there's a robot, too much robot, then there has to be something human to balance it out. So I don't know exactly where that's going to go, but I know that that's the law of the universe. So I'm positive.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Justina. What a great conversation.
My pleasure.
Justina left me with a thought I couldn't quite put down. We spend so much energy trying to convince people to buy now, and almost none building a small room in their memory for the day they're actually ready. Rotterdam is coming up on the horizon, a city proud of a single idea, not words, but deeds. If Justina's world is patience, this one is the opposite. This is a city that rolls up its sleeves and gets things done. Which is exactly why I'm going to meet Daniel.
Daniel, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It was quite a trip actually. Getting here was quite a ride, but finally got here. So yeah, finally in your hometown, Rotterdam.
Yes. Born and raised.
Yeah, you're very proud to be somebody from Rotterdam, right?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I think people can relate, right, to the fact that the place where you're born, if you live there your whole life and you really like it, that it's also part of your identity.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, even though I've also lived abroad periodically as a student, like in Paris, São Paulo, go to Portugal frequently to visit family and friends. Yeah, Rotterdam is still the hometown, you know, and also that feeling after you get back from a holiday,
Yeah.
and you touch base again. Yeah, that's a good feeling.
Yeah. So you grew up in Rotterdam, but you have Portuguese roots. Your parents are from Portugal. How has navigating those two distinct cultures, because Dutch culture and Portuguese culture are very different, how have these shaped the way you look at customer experience in general? Have they actually shaped how you look at customer experience?
I think like looking from both cultures, like being born and raised in Rotterdam, which is a city in the Netherlands quite well known for being direct, not sugarcoating things, just putting it as is, which I would also say is like quite transparent, you know.
Yeah.
In Rotterdam, people often make a bit of a joke that in Amsterdam they know how to sell a story, but here, you know, we just roll up our sleeves and get things done. Yeah, I can definitely see that part in the way I communicate with people. I also joke about that I'm quite direct and straightforward. But then also I noticed that people I deal with actually like that, because they know if they ask me for advice or for my view on things, they will actually get my view and not some answer that maybe they want to hear.
Yeah.
But then I also think being raised in by Portuguese parents, going to Portugal often and seeing that culture, it's very different from the Dutch culture. So if we, for example, look at the business context, and if we talk about CX, customer experience, I think in the Netherlands, we're quite good at being efficient. So, you know, whether it's a bar, a restaurant, there's these many tables, these many guests. Whenever there's an empty table, make sure, you know, the next guests are seated. And I think that efficiency game is really there. But then on the other side, if you look at Portugal, is much more about the hospitality part, you know. So that same restaurant or cafe or bar is not that efficient, but sometimes by design, you know. So you'll, for example, see an owner that actually wants to have a chat with the guests to find out if it's the first time there, where they're from, if they're liking it. And I can see value definitely in both sides of the coin, so to say.
Yeah.
I think customer experience, just like marketing and CRO in general, it gets a bit lost when we focus too much on the numbers and not on the people, you know, which in the end are the things that drive the long-term results.
You have a background in sales before moving into digital marketing and CRO. How does that sales mindset, where you are constantly trying to understand what customers or people actually want, influence your approach to customer experience and to CRO today?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the things you learn when doing sales, like I always tell this story, especially to like marketers and CRO people who've never worked in sales. Usually people who haven't worked in sales, they look at sales from what they see in stereotypical movies, like for example, The Wolf of Wall Street, you know, the guys in the suit, bit too much hair products in their hair, you know, they give a lot about status, like all these stereotypes, you know. And somehow they just try one kind of magic script to flip over people from a prospect into customers. But I think the people who've actually worked in sales or who still work in sales, they know that that's not how sales works in the real world. Actually, what it's about, it's you have someone that you're in conversation with and you want to find out, can I help you? Like, what is the problem you have? And is the product or service that I offer something that helps you solve that problem? And for that, it's important not to be talking a lot and making a lot of assumptions, which is, spoiler, what a lot of people do. And especially a lot of rookies when they start in sales, they kind of think, oh, I need to be knowledgeable, so just blur it all out. It's actually the opposite. Like what you see a lot of very experienced salespeople do is they ask a lot of open questions and neutral questions. So they're not trying to steer you to a certain direction. It's not, hey, I this to sell you. So I'm going to ask you questions so we lead to that product or service. Now it's really about understanding your problem and what kind of solutions you might have tried before, so that I can understand, like, okay, this product might be a fit, or this service, or it might not be a fit. And I think then the end of that interview, of that conversation is to find out, like, hey, can we do business together or not? And the reality is oftentimes the situation will be that you can do business. You know, it's apparently not the ideal customer, and that's okay. And then you just move on to the next conversation. And I think there's even value in that part. You know, a lot of people might think like, oh no, you need to close every deal, but you can only close what's closable. So if you find out, hey, there's no fit, I can do anything for you. The fact that I will let you know that, but the fact that I also ask you really good questions, summarize what you said, and show that I listened, even though you might not sign a contract with me now, chances are really high that you would tell other people, like, hey, I had a chat with this guy, contact him because he asked really clever questions. He listened to me and he really wanted to understand the problem instead of trying to push something down my throat. I think that latter part is happening also too much on LinkedIn, where I'm active, and every now and then, you know, somebody enters the DM and you're like, oh, nice. They want to have a chat, but they're already ready with the sales pitch and trying to sell me stuff. And I'm like, first of all, I don't even know you. Second of all, you don't even know what kind of problem I might have. So what makes you assume that I'm interested in your product or service?
That's a little bit the difference with a product mindset versus a customer mindset, or what I, for lack of a better word, a jobs to be done mindset. As you know, I'm very much into jobs to be done, where you take the problem of the customer and try to figure out what are they actually trying to accomplish. And for me, that schisma between those two is becoming more and more apparent. You have people who are really riding that product mindset a lot, the product journey, and shoving things down a funnel. And then you have the people who are thinking about what is the job that my customer is trying to achieve. And that is also a school of thought that I see. Well, it's not emergent, it has always been there, but that duality, I see that it's very strong these days.
Yeah, I think what people also tend to forget, you know, and I see that also happening in my job. You know, we, for example, advertise at Vodafone Business on certain products and services, you know, and then people are like, oh yeah, you're the CRO specialist, let's optimize the landing pages. And then they think I'm only going to look at the landing page, you know, because that's the page tied to the ad. And actually last year, did a couple of analyses where I looked at the landing page, you know, how far are people scrolling, how many % are coming in via desktop versus mobile, what does that behavior look like, what can we see in screen recordings, where do they click, where they're not clicking. But you don't stop there, because it's not that vacuum, right? A potential customer is not only looking at your website. So what you then do next is, okay, what kind of keywords are relevant that people are searching for in search engines and AI chatbots? Okay, this keyword is most relevant. If I look at that keyword, what kind of questions are related to that keyword? Okay, people are trying to find answers to these questions. Okay, if I look for one of these questions or that keyword, which other companies pop up and what do their landing pages look like? And by having that whole entire scope, that's when you start to understand, like, okay, there's some of these questions we're not answering on the landing page. Okay, we're communicating very much product name first while people are still figuring out, I have this problem. Is this the right solution that's going to fix that problem? And then what I did with that analysis is present that to marketing, the content editor, and also actually sales. I did a workshop with sales, and I asked them like, hey, do you recognize these questions? What kind of questions do you guys get when people schedule a call or call you directly about this product or service? And sales actually started laughing because they recognized the questions and they were like, yeah, these match one-on-one with the conversations we have. So then what you do is not only tell the content editor, hey, this is the way we need to update the landing page. You also sit down with the ads specialist and say, let's also tweak the Google ads because we're talking a lot about the product and people have a solution in mind and they're not really sure. So it's not only focusing on that page, but also how are people getting to that page from the ads.
Yeah.
And then making it easier for people to schedule that call or have a call with account manager. And then once we started updating the ads and the landing pages to match the questions that people wanted to have answers to, we saw it go from 4 a month all the way up to 25 a month. Yeah. And the kind of leads that were coming in were actually better prepared. So the conversation started to go, okay, I got all these answers. What's the pricing like? What's the implementation process like? If I sign a contract now, when will I be up and running? So you then also see that actually the contract closing rate started to become shorter and more deals closed, which in the end is why we do it, right? Like I'm not optimizing pages to put in a PowerPoint and show to executives. There's some people who do that. Like, to be frank, I think there's too many PowerPoints dying in people's Teams chats and also in people's email inboxes, you know. I think we got a bit too addicted to that. Also in CX, another dashboard, another PowerPoint. What are the insights? And more importantly, like, what are the next steps? You know, what kind of actions are we taking out of it? And then what are the results coming out of it?
We've talked about efficiency and directness, but it is also something that I'm seeing far beyond the Netherlands as well, is that we are very much interested by the quick wins, by the quick fixes, by best practices. Yeah. And my question to you is are we sometimes too, I don't know, mesmerized by finding that quick fix or the quick hack maybe? I was in a conversation with a client just a few weeks back, and so 2 weeks in, we've done some work with them. All of a sudden they say, yeah, so when are we going to see the results of the quick wins? And I was like, yeah, I would love to give you quick wins straight away, like tomorrow. I would love to, but that is not just not how change works. It takes time to change things, and yeah, so but they truly believe that they buy something, they buy a service from you, or they hire you internally in the company to fix our CRO, and they expect that tomorrow it will be different. Are we obsessed by that quick hack?
I mean, I do get what is driving people for it, right? Because in the end, also, I work at a commercial company. It's publicly listed every quarter, including today. The quarterly results came out. You know, investors look at that. The market has an opinion about you. Opinion can be positive or negative, you know, but the market will have an opinion about you.
Yeah.
And even if you're not publicly trading, even if you're just a commercial company that's not on the stock market, still, right? People have an opinion about you, suppliers, the employees, etc. And there's always this pressure, right, of wanting to see growth. But I think what happens a lot, and I've seen that when I worked 6 years agency side, whether it's small companies, medium-sized companies, or larger companies, is usually they have a formula of what works to grow, and they will keep repeating that formula until they hit what's called like the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
So at one point they see that the growth actually starts to stop, and then people panic because what's going wrong? You know, we tried this formula, it's tried and tested.
Yeah.
It always worked. Why is it not working anymore? And it can be due to a bunch of different things, right? Like market conditions can change. Your target audience can change. New competitors might have entered the market. Maybe there's a new product out there that's making some of your products redundant, whatever. There can be many different things. But I think what those kind of situations then start to point out is that people have to step back and reflect and think about, okay, what is sustainable growth going to look like? So not the quick hacks, not the things we tried and tested. And actually, if you start to reach that glass ceiling, I like that situation because we can't afford to keep doing the same things anymore. Actually, that part is then ruled out. Everyone starts to understand, shit, we're at the end of the railroad track, you know? From this point onwards, we need to get somewhere where we haven't been before by doing things we haven't done before. And that's where, you know, experimentation comes into place, trying out new things. And in order for a tree to grow, you know, it needs to have water, but not too much water. The soil needs to be good, you know, there needs to be certain conditions. There's several things you can do to, you know, help it grow a little bit faster. But there is a time interval involved. And I think also in companies for the long-term structured growth, you need to put systems and processes into place that are going to take time before you see the end result.
Yeah.
And that's a tricky thing because a company wants short-term results and you're not giving them a magic pill that's going to give those short-term results. But they do need to understand that some things, if we do that, we might have really good numbers now, but it's going to bite us in the ass at the end of the line. I remember David Manheim, he's from the UK, big Disney fan. He goes to the Disney parks plenty of times, and he gave this example of Disney actually ruining the experiences. They wanted more revenue, so they started selling the skip the line passes. And then a lot of people start buying the skip the line pass, so you're still standing in line, just slightly shorter line. But also if you have to pay that pass for each attraction, it becomes quite expensive day. So bottom line, you might think, hey, great, you know, the revenue, we're hitting all the numbers, we're off the charts, it's great. But long term, you're hurting your growth. So people will say, you know what, next time, no Disneyland anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else. And I think that's the thing we have to keep in mind. Like, what kind of things might we do short term that can boost our revenue, but might hurt us in the long term? Let's stop doing that. And that's a tough conversation to have because there's different politics and also different financials, right, into play.
Of course, and that's not an easy conversation to have. You work for one of the largest telecom providers here in the Netherlands, and also a very large group in the world as well. And you talk a lot on conference as well. You are a very demanded and in-demand speaker. Every time I see a LinkedIn post on you, you are somewhere talking. So I think you have a pretty good view on where customer experience is going, and also where it is in the Netherlands. So my question is, where do you think Dutch companies are actually leading? Where are they really good at, and where are they maybe a little bit lacking?
Ooh, good question. I think based on my agency side experience, doing that for 6 years, and especially at the last one at Delft, where I also had international clients like German-speaking countries, UK, France, Spain, Scandinavia. The thing that the Netherlands is really, really strong in, which is not surprising, is the digital part. Like the internet basically started here. Things like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth have actually been invented by Dutch inventors. If we talk about responsive design, which now is kind of taken at face value, but mobile first, I remember in 2015, 2016, talking to clients, and you had to repeat that message, like mobile first. Let's not only look what it looks like on desktop, but let's look at it on a smartphone too. Like those kind of things, the Netherlands is really, really strong at it. So digital design, websites, app design, so the whole digital service design, the whole digital experience. Also CRO, CX, it's really strong there. I think where the Netherlands could do a bit better is more of that, what I talked about earlier. Like we're really good at really optimizing and fine-tuning the processes so the numbers look great, and we have kind of optimal efficiency. But sometimes optimal efficiency, even though it can look good for the numbers in short term, is not what's going to look good for the numbers in the long run.
Yeah.
I think we sometimes might adopt a bit more the Southern European approach, where we say, let's not only look at the numbers, but let's not forget the personal relationship, you know?
Yeah.
Because in the end, people are doing business with people. That's not going to change with AI. It's not going to change after AI. Like the core is always people doing business with other people.
Yeah.
Whether it's online, face-to-face, through whatever channels, that's going to stay the same. And I think if you keep that in mind, you start to understand that it's not about only having a good product or service. It's about having that relationship and also cultivating it. And that takes time.
Yeah.
And costs money, you know? It takes time, it costs money, it's whatever. But if you look at companies that do this really well, for example, like Coolblue, they're founded here in Rotterdam, and they're now one of the biggest electronics stores in Western Europe. Crossed 2 billion, I think, in revenue. Like they became huge. But they became huge because they when they started competing with MediaMarkt, they started competing on service, not on price. They said, we're not going to have the cheapest price, but you're going to get the best customer service. And, you know, you can put that on an ad, you can put that in a TV commercial, you can put it wherever. But there's going to be moments of truth where you need to show that you really mean it. When I was working at a smaller agency, Zicht Online in Rotterdam, at one point, our beamer broke down, which we had in the conference room. And we had actually a really important meeting that next week with a customer that was coming from outside Rotterdam to our office. And we really need that beamer for the presentation because this was 2016. This was not Teams, etc.
Those were different times.
So we really needed that beamer basically. Otherwise, we had to reschedule that meeting. We looked into that beamer. It was just outside of the warranty period from that manufacturer, but also online. That particular series of beamers had actually a manufacturing issue, which was the thing that also caused it to break for us. Unfortunately, just outside of the warranty period. So we contacted Coolblue, and they contacted the company that makes the beamers. They were like, well, we can give you 25% discount because it's outside of warranty period. There's nothing else we can do. Yeah. And Coolblue was like, this beamer is not being made anymore. We have similar ones in the same price range. We're talking about 3,000 to 3,500 euros per beamer. Pick one, we'll have it express delivery to you tomorrow and installed in the conference room.
Wow.
Free of charge.
There you go.
You could say, okay, that costs Coolblue 3K or 3,500 euros. And also the time to drive over and install it in the conference room, etc. But at that agency, we were with 40 people. Every person told that story to numerous people. Yeah. Like we're now in 2026. Yeah. This happened 10 years ago. I'm still telling this story. So that's what I mean, that sometimes you have to make decisions that in the long run are not good, in the short run, are not good for your financials, but in the long run add up. Yeah. Because this is about showcasing, look, this is what we mean when we say we put customer service first. Yeah. And in the end, they became so big that eventually MediaMarkt changed their strategy and they started to lower their prices and say, we have the cheapest price because they didn't want to compete on service. And still people continued choosing Coolblue because the word of mouth was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And still, if I have to pick MediaMarkt Coolblue, I go to Coolblue. Doesn't even matter for me if it's 10, 20, 50, 60, 70 euros more expensive.
The funny thing is that I have very similar experiences with Coolblue over the year, and I also use them on occasion because it's really a hallmark for who they are and how they do business. And generally, this is a great company. I didn't realize they were from Rotterdam, but there you go. See, that's the pride of people from Rotterdam. I came in here with a notebook full of stereotypes and ideas that the Dutch are direct, blunt, cold, starting to have the feeling that that might be wrong.
Thanks a lot for the interview, and good to see that I brought some Portuguese weather out for today.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you, Michel.
Vind ik mooi.
Doei. Ciao, ciao. Goedenavond terug. Goedenavond. Yes, thanks man. I came to this country for one of its stranger sports, and the weather robbed me of it. So before I drive home, I went looking for another one, all the way up north, to Friesland. I am here in Winsum, which is a small town here in Friesland. And I'm here to experience this, Fierljeppen. It's pole vaulting and it's legendary here in Friesland. It is centuries old and it's not exactly what you expect of a national sport. The setup is really simple. There is a canal, like this one behind me, and you need to get to the other side. You could walk around it, you could build a bridge, you could do like any other reasonable person and take a bike and find another way. But the Frisians, somewhere along the way, looked at it and said, hey, this stretch of water, let's jump over it with a stick. And watching all this, you realize something. This is not a country that avoids obstacles. This is a country that actually runs at them with a stick. Which is the whole country in a single jump. Justina told me to pick a position and stand in it. Daniel told me the quick win is a trap, and the only way through is to do the hard thing together. The Dutch have been living that for 1,000 years. They're direct because the water doesn't care about your feelings. They commit because the bridge is too far, and they're not afraid to look a little silly as long as they make it to the other side. In the end, we're all just trying to reach the other bank.
Stap de deur uit, tas in mijn hand. De straat is nog stil, jij slaapt nog lang. De trein wacht al trappend in het grijs. En ik neem je lach mee in mijn koffer erbij. Ik kijk niet om, maar ik voel je nog. In elke bocht, in elke stad die ik doorkom. Wat ik ook vind, wat ik ook mis, jij blijft de richting waar ik thuis in zit. Ik ga